All right, folks, I'm joined again with 𝗏𝗏. We're going to be talking about Red October, what's going to be happening this October. But first, folks, are you feeling unsure about your finances these days? You're not alone. That's why Noble Gold Investments is here to help. Just hear it straight from the folks that they've helped. The Noble Gold crew walked me through everything, no stress. With their help, I can finally sleep easy at night. And now this month, Noble Gold Investments is handing out a free 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful coin if you qualify for an IRA. Invest in gold and silver with Noble Gold Investments at noblegoldinvestments.com now. noblegoldinvestments.com. Get yourself some gold, folks, from Noble Gold or even 𝗏𝗏. You're doing the same thing. So I got to read my ads, Bo. Man, what's going to happen here? I mean, okay, Dianne Feinstein has passed away. She got replaced with, I forgot the LaShonda or LaFonda. I forget her name. LaShonda. What was the lady's name that replaced her?
Honestly, I haven't been paying attention. I've been working on
LaShonda.
my
I don't know.
updates,
Whatever.
and I'm just counting time, and I'm watching everything in terms of the timelines that are manifesting, and we really are at critical mass here in terms of what we've talked about. You know, if we talked about in August, how
well, I agree with you. I agree with you in the
sense that crazy.
I agree with you in the sense that it's going to intensify. It's obviously intensifying. It's escalating.
Yeah,
and the month of October has historically and always has been a month where things do escalate and kind of take a vertical leap up. What do you see here, Bo? Go ahead. You can have the floor.
Yeah, so I want to start with this. I'm going to say this twice. Okay, events that are going on in our world. I know as crazy as they might be, or as intense as they might be. I want to say this. Okay, all of this going on in our world, it's not unexpected because God wrote the end from the beginning. When you understand Revelation, you understand timelines within the Bible, and you understand the prophecy of Daniel. So these things, they are not political; they're biblical. I'm going to repeat that. The events of our world, they're not political. They're biblical. But yes, we're seeing politically things manifest. Why? Because it's in God's timelines. It's in his timing of events. And so all these events that are manifesting on the world are all perfectly fitting into God's design. And so today I want to go through, I've spent a lot of time yesterday and the day before and this weekend really updating the presentation, but more importantly, giving the viewers and yourself, viewer, I'm going to give you a big picture perspective.
I'm just a little, hold on 1 second though, but I mean, wasn't September supposed to be the month that there would be a massive die-off? God was going to come in and save the day. Honestly, what happened in September? I didn't see anything really happen.
Well, again, September there's the 15th, okay?
And yeah, but I mean, you made it seem like that was it. It was over. It was just going to be done. It was a wrap. It seems like I'm just speaking from my audience. It seems like every month.
As much okay, you need to basically go back and listen to that interview, David. I basically said, okay, before year end, you're going to see all hell break loose in the world. That's what I said. So don't put words in my mouth in terms of what I said, because I said from the summer solstice to the next solstice, which is the winter solstice, that 6-month window is the massive paradigm shift you're going to see upon the world. And so we're right in the middle of that right now. And what do we see? You know, on the holiest day of the year, September 25, literally the holiest day of the year. What do you got? You got Trump holding a 45 on the day of judgment.
And that means
you have to. God is mocking them.
Wow, I mean that's I mean holding a 45 on the day of judgment on that day of judgment, holding a 45. Interesting. And then he also put it out to Millie, didn't he?
I don't. Did
you hear about that? He said something like, he sent a pretty stern stuff like that, from what I've heard. So, geez.
Well, again, see, I heard it yesterday on someone sent a post on my Twitter account or something that they actually he retweeted something about yesterday on his Truth Social account.
Okay, wow.
So I'm just telling you, this is all Summer solstice, go back to the last two interviews. Summer solstice was the turning point where you take this massive ship and you turn the wheel. What did I say? Literally a couple days after the 25th, the summer solstice is going to mark a key event or time point. What happened? You had specifically on that summer solstice, the summer solstice, the text came out linking Hunter to his father, who's been denying any financial relationship with his son for the past 4 years. And the text said, what? I'm sitting here with my son, my father while they're doing a shakedown on China. That's exactly what happened. And I said, watch, you're going to find very shortly that this is going to lead to huge problems for the Biden regime. What happened? Just last week, what was the guy's name? The senator, that they're basically doing impeachment hearings now on Biden because of that text.
Right. And you know, Juan has said many times that we're going to be going through this Democrat musical chairs. They're panicked.
Oh, absolutely, they're panicked because basically we're not God. The bride is not backing down on anything, and all I know is that the ship is turning. We're going to see a huge event go down. And so we're looking at time points that are important. So September 25th was a very, very important time point. Why? Because it was the Day of Judgment. And so the Day of Judgment is biblically, actually, I'll pull, it's specifically a time point where on the 15th, the world is supposed to repent, or it's a very important, it's called Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is a very important time window. There's a 10 days of awe, and that leads us into the Day of Judgment. And you got the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, you've the Judgment Day, the Day of Judgment. On that day of all days that this could have happened, on that exact day, you've got 45 with a gun mocking these people. And what was the whole thing of Arnold, right? I'll be back. So all of these,
man, you
gotta laugh. Like, God's got a sense of humor, and he's mocking them on what's going on in the world. So it's really incredible. So let's kind of get into the blood and the guts of this presentation. So if I can put my screen up here, so I can do a share screen. So, because this will kind of give a very good visual and explanation. But again, please go back to the prior two podcasts, okay? I've said very clearly, it won't be until the end, to the winter solstice, to the 6-month turn, from the summer solstice to the winter solstice, where all hell breaks loose. And by the winter solstice, we will be 180 degrees different than where we were by the summer solstice. So something happened in between.
Did you freeze up? Okay.
Yeah, so something happened. Yeah. So I just wanted to put a pause on that. So something happens in between the 6-month window. So again, all these events going on in the world, they are not political, they're biblical. And I'm going to explain to you timing on this, because all of this is by God's design. Nothing in timing right now is random. We are leaping into the most incredible time point in human history, David. We get to be here on this earth, watch the greatest move of God's Spirit ever. This is going to be better than what happened at the Red Sea when God parted it. This is going to be historic, what's about to happen here. So let's go to understand timing. First off, those who want this PDF presentation, you can pause the screen here for a minute, scan your this QR code like you would at a restaurant. 70 plus pages, half of it's new, it's free. Okay, so I'm just telling you, get this information so you understand what's going on. Now, let's go to 1913. See, this has always been about Israel, okay? The whole world for 2,000 years, this has always been around about Israel. The world wants Israel. It's going to end up in Israel. You read Revelation, there's all, the final conflict, the Battle of Armageddon, it's back in Israel. It's always about Israel. And so let's understand the time. So it's right now we've got a conflict that's been going on for over 100 years with the Arab states. So 1913, you got the first conflict that happened. If you understand time, this is basically a move towards, and from our prior presentations, the year 2037, okay? Everything is lining up for a move into the year 2037. Now, let's
But they want to
continue
get
on.
most of this done, the agenda done by 2030, correct?
Yes, exactly. But it does, but that's this 2030 does not calculate out to any important biblical timing for God. You see, so the 2037 is the critical year, not 2030, and you'll see why in a few minutes. So now we've the Israel conflict from 1913. It goes on to the after that there is another war where Israel was proclaimed or its independence, and this was in 1948, and that was May 14th. Interesting, David, but on that exact day, Trump was 700 days old. To the exact day.
Wow.
See, so you're going to find that Trump fits into all of this biblically, and everything about him is a number 7, and you'll see why, how this is all playing out. So May 14th, 700 days, Trump is 700 days old. On that exact day, Israel proclaimed its independence, and within 24 hours, you got a war break out.
Crazy.
So it's exactly how this goes on. Then you got 19 years later, you got another war, the War of 1967, and that began on June 5. Now, this is important. It's important to understand. The war was how many days? It was called a what? The 6-day war.
The 6-day war, yeah.
Yes. So the war was 6 days, and on the 7th day, it was over. It ended on the 6th day.
Interesting.
Now, this is interesting because I'm going to explain this to you, how this is all playing out relative to time. So in a godly cycle, God's work, or whoever's work, so we are to rest on the 6th day, but the 6th day is the date of completion. And on the 7th, there is the day of rest. So let's understand that. So furthermore, if you go from 1967, which is right here, you run a calendar cycle. We've read Leviticus. Thou shalt consecrate the 50th year. The 50th year was what? 2017. 2017. Trump. What happened 2017?
Trump.
The Revelation 12 sign happened exactly on on September 23rd, which was Rosh Hashanah, September 23rd of 2017. Now, so that's exactly 50 years from the 6-day war of 1967. How does that happen? It's because it's by design. You're going to find this whole presentation, you're going to find everything is by godly design. Now, let's take it further. I've explained the 6-day rule, also the 6-year rule, because what it is God basically talks about, you're supposed to, in the commandments, you're supposed to rest on the 7th day. You're supposed to have a day of Sabbath. That's why it's called a day of rest, okay? But so you finish your work on the 6th day. Also, when you read Exodus, it talks about years, because there's a thing called a Shemitah. We've talked about that. So in a 6th year, you got the 7th year is the year of Shemitah, which is the time of rest, but the 6th year is a time of completion. Well, let's do some more math. So we're looking for 2 things. This is the whole point of this presentation. We're looking for 2 things: to find out the year of the Lord's favor and the day of his vengeance. Okay, we're never going to know the day, but we could probably figure out the month. They're pretty darn close to it. Okay, and I'll show you why. Isaiah 61 reads, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to comfort the brokenhearted and to proclaim that the captives will be released and the prisoners will be freed." See, that's basically what has to happen to humanity. Get it? Because of what's going on. And so we're to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God. So when is the year of the Lord's favor? Well, 1967, 50 years takes us to 2017. Well, what does it say? But you have to add now what? 6 years. Let's add 6 years. If you add 6 years to 2017,
that's this year or so.
2023. The issue is there's only October, November, and December left. Okay, so the Bible is telling us, and again, I'm not making this up. These are all scriptural references in the Bible. This is not numerology. This is literally taking scriptures, talking about Leviticus 50 years, Daniel's timeline 7 years. It's all biblical timing. So if you add 6 years to 2017, you get 2023. So from the Revelation 12 sign, this is the year of the Lord's favor. In other words, God needs to finish his work. Basically, the scriptures are telling us God's going to finish his work by the end of 2023. So that takes me back to your comment earlier. You know, why hasn't anything happened? Because we're simply waiting for the day of vengeance, and we don't know that exact
So you
day.
think all of this is going to be settled by the end of this year? Everything's going to be...
Oh, it's going to be by the end of this year. The Bible's telling us, calculations are telling us, it's going to be insanely awesome and insanely horrible. The best of times in the worst of times. And it's supposed to start anytime now. And I'm going to tell you, there's a few dates that are coming up that are critical dates. And I don't know what's going to happen. But again, I'm just showing you important time points based on history. We're going to get into that in a second. So we got 3 months to go. And I'm going to show you why these next 3 months are so critically important based on biblical timing. So furthermore, we're waiting for the fall of Babylon. We've talked about this on your show in the past. The fall of Babylon, Daniel 2 prophecy. And when Babylon falls, mystery Babylon falls, and new is birth. Okay, so we're looking for a birth. If you do 40 weeks, because conception, January 1, you do 40 weeks, that takes you to October 9th of this year.
Okay.
So which is like next week.
Yes.
So that's an important time point. We're looking for birth. We're looking for something historic to go down anytime now into the end of the year. Now,
we got that also, we got that national emergency tomorrow, correct?
Yes, exactly. And see, sometimes they use these events, these broadcasts, you know, to do things. So I'm just telling you, we've talked about, I will bring this nation to its knees. So something's supposed to happen to the United States, which brings us to our knees. Which
something horrific is going to happen.
Yes.
That's going to paralyze all of us in fear, and then that is when God comes through.
Right, and then God raises up a standard against evil and destroys them. So just like what happened to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it was horrible. They were thrown in the fire, and then God showed up, and he walked out untouched. Jesus died on the cross. It looked horrible. 3 days later, he rose from the dead. At the Red Sea, Israel's pinned. They were basically finished. If God didn't intervene, there would be no nation of Israel today. But yet God intervened, and Pharaoh was destroyed, and they were gone.
So every time we're pushed to our brink, and then God saves us.
That's when God shows up. So God shows up when there's no way out. So the nation's about to be brought to its knees, and then you will hear the sound of great victory. So what do we talk about in our last podcast? All of this is in our last podcast. Please, those who want to review, go review. Listen to the past few podcasts. These are just updated slides, the same slides, plus updated slides. And so we talked about the feast. The spring feasts have passed. They're gone, okay? But we know it's the year 2023. The calculations are telling us it's the year 2023. There's 3 fall feasts. We're in the last one. Trumpets is gone. Atonement is finished. That was on the 25th. And all that's left is tabernacles. And you and I are speaking right now on the 3rd of October in the time point of tabernacles, which ends this Friday, October 6th. So if God historically has done things and he's moved, because these are his appointed times, his appointed feasts and seasons. So when God moves, he'll historically is moved within his feasts. So what I'm saying is that God is still expected to move and do something. When he moves, it'd be biblical, it'd be historic, it would be biblical, which would be, some kind of a massive event that blows people's mind, because that's how God operates. So that takes us to tabernacles. Okay, so we're in tabernacles right now. Well, how awesome is this? Okay, on the 29th, I sent you a text. We were looking at it. What happened? Feinstein died. Okay. And that fulfilled, because what do we talk about on prior podcasts? The angel of death that visited Pharaoh killed Pharaoh's firstborn and all of Egypt's firstborn, including the animals, is on the earth right now. His first strike fulfilled the prophecy of Julie Green. The prophecy was this: the angel of death, which is from a prophecy of March 27th of last year. A U.S. senator from California will die. Yes, this very well-known senator will fall to the angel of death. Judgment has hit, and again, we're talking about judgment.
Who said this? Who said this?
Julie Green, a prophetic word of Julie Green. Yes, and so judgment will hit their house for the deaths they have helped cause in this world. Senator Feinstein is her name. Yes, my children, a high price your government officials will pay for what they have forced upon you. So what I'm saying is this is an angel of death prophecy. The angel of death struck. And this was the first. But when the angel of death struck Pharaoh, there was hundreds, maybe thousands of deaths in a single night. I've stated on your show, we are going to see either this year or early or some point early next year, but it's coming, an angel of death timed, and the morgues will be filled. And it's not, these are, see, like Feinstein was visited by the angel of death. So understand, it's not the people who got this that you know, that you talk about, right? Has nothing to do with it. It's the evil ones who try to force all this on us.
Right.
Get a visitation by the angel of death. So and when did it happen? This happened on the 29th, on Tabernacles, day 1. What also happened on day 1, September 29th? The New York flooding. People, Google New York flood. That was the most insane flood that the United States, New York's ever seen. It was titled biblical flooding. It happened on the 29th and it continued into the 30th. This happened on Tabernacles. God is moving. Tabernacles ends this Friday. Something, I believe, is coming very, very soon. It's
this week.
This broadcast, yeah, potentially into this Friday, and it's interest on this Friday, not into on this Friday potentially, or into the Friday into the Saturday, because it's basically Israel time versus United States time. And so I don't know. I'm just doing math calculations for you, and this is just the tip of the iceberg here. It gets much deeper than this. So we run a 50-year cycle. Now this is crazy. So 50-year cycle. Think about this. 50 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, but more importantly, relative to war and conflict, the Yom Kippur War. David, let me read this to you. The Yom Kippur War, also called the October War, was initiated by Egypt and Saudi Arabia on what day? October 6th.
Yeah.
1973, on the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. Let's do a 50-year Leviticus cycle. Oh, coincidentally, this Friday, the last day of Tabernacles, October 6th, a war which eventually drew both the United States and the Soviet Union, sound familiar? Two nations right now, opposed, okay, into indirect confrontations in defense of their respective allies to negotiate on terms more favorable to their Arabic countries after their defeat and loss of territories, including the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights, in the what war? The 6-Day War. The war finally ceased on October 26th. So you want some bullet points? October 6th, October 26th, Israel signed a formal ceasefire agreement with Egypt on November 11th, 11/11, and with Syria, which would be on May 31 of 1974, which would be next year, which would be in completion of all of these stuff. So this is what, and the war had a significant impact on the trajectory of an eventual peace process between Egypt and Israel, which culminated in the return of the entire Sinai Peninsula in Egypt in exchange for lasting peace. We're going to talk about this in a second, but guess what Netanyahu's right now doing with Saudi Arabia? Negotiating peace talks.
Interesting.
Like, come on, all of this is freaky, and yet it's happening right in front of us. So you run a Leviticus cycle, 50 years relative to 50 years ago, you've got October 6th of this year, October 26th of this year. So basically something could manifest somewhere around potentially this Friday that goes for 20 days into the 26th. And there's a very important time point, the 124 time point, which would be 1024. And that leads us into November 11th. So if this is a huge stuff, and imagine things like this now interlace on our world relative to what happened 50 years ago. You don't think that by December it's game over, everything's changed. You see, so all of these things are culminating into some kind of epical event because of, again, the Leviticus cycle of 50 years. Interestingly enough, we got Roe v. Wade. 73, just like the Yom Kippur War, 73. You've got every year, you have the Shemitah, 7-year crashes, and you have Roe v. Wade overturned last year. What does God say? If God is with us, who could be against
us, right?
us? So, and what year would God strike? In the year 2023, because it's got to be over by the end of this year. That also, it's interesting that in
so if that's the case, then next year is going to be a very fruitful year, a very good year for us.
It will be.
So it's all going to culminate into these next 3 months.
It'll be a year of rest. So next year is going to be miracles unseen, prosperity unseen.
So okay, Bo, I got to play devil's advocate here. So what if none of this happens in these 3 months? Are you going to come back on December and say it's going to happen in March, April, and May?
No. We're going to be back on whatever happens. No, in January we'll do a couple, maybe we'll interview two before then. But in January, I'll be here in January. If nothing happens in January, say whatever you want. But I know in my heart something's going down. I know something's going down. The math calculations are unbreakable, basically, because this goes back hundreds of years, thousands of years. All of this is, the time windows are coming in so tight right now. So
it's not only just down. It's not just biblical, it's mathematical. It's mainly, you know, you can read this because it's mathematical, right? He's a mathematician.
Yeah.
And you're just reading the math.
When you speak, that's a sine wave. It's a wave, it's math. Wow. Everything's math. When God spoke, Jesus is math. When God spoke, Jesus is the word. It's all math. But Jesus is the beginning and the end. So he wrote the end from the beginning. Jesus was there at creation. You see, it's all a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. And I'm just trying to show the world how amazing God is. And more important, because this is so amazing, there's nothing to fear. See, there's nothing to fear because it's not political, it's biblical. So 73. What are the think of what are the chances of all these things? 71, Nixon takes us off the gold standard. 2 years later, the United States meets up with Saudi Arabia to do what? Create the petrodollar, because there's no more gold in the dollar, so they put petro in the dollar. And then coincidentally, just last September, August 24th, 2 years to the exact mark that the the Saudis signed a military agreement with Russia, 2 years to the exact day, 2 years later of this August 24th, Saudis signed the agreement with the BRICS. And we'll get into that in just a second. So there's no more gold in the dollar. Now there's no more petro in the dollar, now that the BRICS left. So the dollar's paper. What does paper do? It burns. So in 73, the United States creates a petrodollar, of which there's no more petro in the dollar anymore. This happened in 73. I don't know how this all happens, except there's got to be a God to do it all, because it's not possible, all these things that are going down. So we're stepping into the greatest everything, and as this year ends, and next year is supposed to be a year of prosperity, a year of incredible.
It's going to get really scary this year.
Really scary this year, but we're to fear not, because if you know, see, evil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And Jesus brings life more abundantly. You see, so if you're not watching the news, you're not watching the media, there's no fear. No matter what happens, just know that God's got you. And this is God's battle. We'll talk about that in a second. But because we've talked about the syndicate being a worldwide conglomerate, these people are all over the world, okay? There's no one person like you can't have 45 step in there and fix this, okay? These people this goes to the Vatican, goes to Germany, to China. It's global, okay? They go to Switzerland and in the World Economic Forum. Like, this is a global syndicate. There's no one guy that can stop these people. This is a worldwide syndicate, and the people need to understand the magnitude, how big this thing is. They've been planning this for generations. Evil's been on this earth, as we talked about, since Adam and Eve. This is 6,000 years of story going on. So this is a 50-year mark. We're stepping into the greatest revival in human history. We're going to see next year, starting next year, because at the 6 month when it ends, starting next year, you're going to see people being preyed upon. You're going to see the Holy Spirit come upon people. People will be coming out of wheelchairs. People are going to see their vision coming. It's going to be signs, miracles, and wonders. And it's all leading up into the last 3 months that are left here. We've got the sound of trumpets. We talk the holiest day of the year. Okay. So September 15th, 10 days of awe, and it leads us into the September 25 time point. Sound the trumpet, Yom Kippur. This year was September 25. Proclaim liberty throughout the land and all of its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. What I'm saying is that we are now going to experience God's jubilee. Now, what is a jubilee? Forgiveness of debt, returning of land. Basically, it's a complete, utter flipping of the financial scales. And this is the cool part. Because the elite have ruled this world for generations, David, we have not seen a biblical jubilee in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So the possibility of something that's happening is next to zero, and yet it's going to happen. God's going to do something that's going to be so incredible, it's going to blow people's minds. And so what happened? So all nations are judged on Rosh Hashanah, September 15th, and their final verdict is sealed on Yom Kippur. So what happened is Yom Kippur? Right here. God sealed their judgment. He mocked them. He literally mocked them. Of all days, think about the possibility of how long we've known Trump, how long we've known 45, how long we've seen him move. When was the last time he walked into a shop and held a gun in his hand?
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
And he happened to do it on the day of judgment.
So you don't even think he planned for that. It just happened through God's divine synchronicities and timing. I mean, right?
Absolutely. Like, how would he know to do that, right? And how would he know to do that?
Crazy.
And then you got Arnold's famous saying, right? I'll be back. You've got what happened. See, all the prophets on this world are battling, and specifically we the people of this world are battling what happened in Israel thousands of years ago, and this was the Jezebel spirit. Okay, there's many.
What is a Jezebel spirit? I call a lot of women Jezebels these days because they're seductresses. Is that the Jezebel spirit?
Yeah, it's false. It's a false god. These are false gods. They're fallen angels, and they're the Baal worship. Basically, worshiping of, and just it's the whole thing we've seen going on in the world. Getting into too much detail of it, but basically, this was running. All the people of Israel were worshiping these false gods. Sound familiar?
Oh yeah. See it today with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and like all these Kardashians. I mean, that's what's happening now.
Yeah. And what happened? You read the story of Mount Carmel and the prophet of Elijah at Mount Carmel. Elijah basically meet me on, like when you say you do a fight, right? Meet me in the back, meet me after school, right? Elijah literally said to the prophets, meet me on Mount Carmel. And he challenged them. He challenged them and he mocked them, and they couldn't do anything. God made sure that everything they tried wouldn't work. And then the fire of God came down and destroyed the altar that was covered and filled with water. It was an impossibility, and yet it happened. And then the people then realized of Israel that God is God, that Elijah is the prophet of God. And that night, they killed all the prophets of Baal. That happened when? In the third year. What's the third year? 2023. So we're coming into a time point of incredible shaking where God's going to shake this world. I want to read this here, this kind of little synopsis. But while everyone thinks all is well, an event is coming that will cause the ground to shake, the volcanoes to erupt, and the markets to collapse. It is coming, and it cannot be stopped. God's 50-year jubilee began on which began on September 2022 of last year. It ended on Yom Kippur this year, September 25, and that's exactly when the day of judgment. And it is on this day that God makes his final decision about our new year, which begins in January 2024. So again, this is what we talked about. In January, by the time January rolls along, it's going to be crystal clear. Something incredible happened to this world. And as the evil ones, the global elite, have refused to repent and turn from their wicked ways, the Lord will now bring vengeance, which is written in Isaiah 61. So we're waiting for the day of vengeance upon the evil ones into the year end. Beginning in 24, the evil ones will have lost their control of America as their financial system. The system they used to build Mystery Babylon will have begun to crumble. In 2024, the financial collapse will then accelerate. America is about to fall for a season for its rebellion against God. Buckle your seatbelts for what is about to go down. The world as we know it is about to come to an end, and a new era is about to be birthed. Now, it's interesting. We talked about birth 40 weeks. That takes us into, again, this Friday, I think the October 6th or 9th, I think what I said. This birth will cause the rug to be pulled off from underneath the elite and everything they have built. Their time is up, and the perversions are about to be revealed. They will lose grip and control of humanity as our dollar crumbles and America witnesses a crash of biblical proportions that forces the elite to return everything that they have stolen. So this is a prosperity which will be returned to the people because Satan stole our inheritance in the garden, and God's now going to return. He's going to flip the financial scales. This will be the greatest financial event in human history. This is in the Bible, the third seal of Revelation. As God's money, gold and silver, begins to glitter. So you talk about, precious metals. Why? Because it's God's money, okay? We're about to be freed from the bondage of the global elite, and their plans will crash with their economy into year end. Since Nixon took us off the gold standard in 71, the value of everything has become meaningless and has become blatantly obvious these past few years. The current financial system is now worthless. Thus, the stock market, too, is worthless, as is backed by nothing but lies, as is the monetary, as is their money, the dollar, the Federal Reserve note. The dollar-based financial system is built upon sand, and the world, as we know it, is built upon sand, and the world is about to find out that the bond markets, the stock markets, and the real estate markets are about to collapse beginning this fall and will continue into summer of next year, 2024. This will be the worst crash in the history of the world. There will be panic, fear, and shock.
Jeez.
The crash is
imminent. Wait. So this crash happens next year?
I'm going to talk about that, but potentially the crash is going to accelerate into December.
Okay, so but I thought 24 was going to be the year that we jump for joy and everything's great. God shows favor.
Depends what world you're hanging on to.
Okay.
You see, so those who prepared, like you stated, who own God's money, silver and gold, are going to be blessed to be a blessing with finances that blow their mind.
That have silver and gold.
Yes, because they prepared. Because the Bible's all about prepare. But those who didn't prepare are going to have the worst year next year. Remember, it's going to be the worst of times in the best of times. So those who prepared, who had the means to prepare, are going to have the most incredible year next year because the blessings are going to be multiplied. Like you can't even imagine the prices that are coming next year for precious metals. On the other end, the dollar will lose the status of the world reserve currency. The global elite lose their control of humanity, and everything starts to completely crumble and fall apart for them. So it's the worst year that they can ever imagine because all the truth's coming out about what they did, and they've got the worst year of their potential, of their lives that they never dreamed existence. Yes.
Yeah.
But because of that transition window, you're going to have rioting. They're going to let's continue it.
Chaos.
The crash is imminent and will follow an event where many people will suffer great loss. This is a time of final preparation to store up some extra food and water and extras because the shelves are going to go bare. America will fall for a season as it is chastised by the Lord, for they have. And they will, again, they're going to try to blame 45, but it's not going to work. The crash will be a near-death experience, and then America will come back for a season. The crash will stop all the foolishness going on in the world, and this will give the world a window of divine favor, a final window of preparation, a time to, again, when you have the land, you'll be able to buy stuff in the mountains, you'll be able to separate yourselves from the cities, you'll be building areas of safety, because again, we're not stopping biblical timing. I'm showing you we're rushing into a year in the future, 2037. So we need to be prepared for what's coming because you're not stopping the rise of the Antichrist.
Right.
It's in the Bible.
We'll have the answer.
We're getting a window of divine favor. But by first, God provides a window of divine favor. So They're going to come in with a kill shot. The prophetic word is, God will let him bring this nation to its knees. And then you will hear the sounds of great victory. Remember, but fear not, because when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Lord shall raise up a standard against him. And this is written in Isaiah 59:19. Now, on our prior podcast, right? You've got the hunters become the hunted. We're in October. I'm giving you a time window based on the war of 1973. And the calculations I've shown you are all pointing to starting this Friday, October 6th. And this could go all the way into 11/11. There's also a very important time point, October 24th, which is the 1-2-4 pattern that I've talked about in all of my calculations as well. So very important time window here, starting this Friday and into basically the next month after that, into November 11th.
So this Friday is really when it intensifies.
Well, because remember we talked, there's only 3 fall feasts, and that's the last day of the last feast. Gotcha. And when does God show up? At the end, when there's no way out. So what does that mean? I don't know. We're gonna have to wait the next week to see what the heck happens. Wow. But something's going down. Now they're gonna basically put apart, I'm sure, right? So yes. Remember, Matthew 24. What does it say? Be not deceived, for the end is not yet. These are the beginnings of birth pains. Well, January 1st, 40 weeks takes us to October 9th. Interesting. So we're about to witness the birth of God's kingdom here on earth, as they're going to potentially do something to cause mass chaos or scare people in this world. And so they're going to try to deceive and scare people in the month of October. Something potentially supposed to happen. You remember the story of the Hunt for Red October, the movie, right? That was a nuclear conflict about a rogue sub.
Juan also says there's a counterpunch coming as well, so that could also tip the scales to where they make these panic moves.
Yeah. So I don't know the events. I'm just showing you times. Like, who would have thought that 45 would be holding a Glock on Day of Judgment? I didn't think about that.
That's crazy. I didn't. Wow. Yeah.
So we're just going to have to wait and see what transpires. But I'm telling you, October 6th into November 11th, critical time point, critical, because it's the last day of the last feast. So something supposed to potentially happen beginning this end of the week into the weekend as we wait and watch. You've got Russia as a huge issue, because they're now selling oil in gold for gold. So basically, they're no longer selling it in the US dollar. Now, this is huge right here. Now we're back to Israel. Okay. So we've talked about what's going on with Israel. So we talked about the BRICS nations as well: Brazil, Russia, India, China. We talked about how Nixon took us off the gold standard. David, Saudis are now talking peace talks with Israel.
Insanity.
And it's going to come to, they're going to have a peace deal. Yeah. Okay. And this is biblical. This is so huge. You don't understand, those that don't understand magnitude, because Israel hasn't had peace with all the Arab nations in over 100 years. And specifically because the United States has a petrodollar contract. So there's no way the Saudis would ever sign a peace treaty with Israel. And yet now they just joined the BRICS on August, like 6 weeks ago, and now Netanyahu's talking peace talks with Saudis. This happens. This is going to basically cause peace in the Middle East. This is going to be historic starting 2024, and this ties in directly with the BRICS.
That's
nations.
Biblical.
The brothers of Goliath stand in glee. We will cripple you. So the BRICS nations, which is now tied in with Saudis, are about to attack the big brother of Goliath, the United States, and cripple and destroy the United States dollar, the Federal Reserve note, as the world reserve currency. Is this going to be horrific? Yes and no. Depends what side of the fence you're sitting on, right? It's going to be horrific for those that are in the world, love the dollar, didn't prepare, and control humanity with it. So that's going to be that side. The other ones who've been preparing, listening to your podcast, buying precious metal, gold and silver, are going to be blessed beyond measure. So it's a double double-edged sword, but the brothers of Goliath are literally tying in with Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, and the peace deal that's about to be signed with Saudis in Israel. This is crazy how this is coming to be, but it's right in front of us. Google Netanyahu, Saudi Arabia. It's happening right in front of us.
Crazy.
So then you've got the great wealth transfer. So what is the great wealth transfer? It's what we just talked about. God's going to rip away the money from the elite and explode, multiply. Biblical blessings in gold and silver means multiplication. And multiply is like 30, 60, 100, fold. So you're talking $20 silver times 30. There's your $600 silver times 60, $1,200 times 100, $2,000 plus silver. You think I'm crazy? Next year you won't. We're gonna see biblical multiplication of God's money. This is the third seal of Revelation. The greatest financial event in human history is about to manifest. We've talked about the angel of death. Okay, he's already visited. What's her name? Feinstein on specifically the first day on the 29th. So she's of September. So now we're heading into the 6th of October. So something's about to happen. The prophet have spoken, the angel of death is on the earth. The financial system's completely going to flip. We're in the quadrillions. And I just want to one more time, I'm going to emphasize this. In the 70s, when we were backed by gold, there wasn't $1 billion in the world, Nino. Then they took us off the gold standard. You get to billions and then trillions and quadrillions, which we're in now. Okay, now I wanted to understand the magnitude. If you count to 1 million, I think it might take you like a few months or a few. I forgot what the calculation was. Actually, here, no, I might have it there. Whatever. But if you want to count to 1 trillion, David, it will take you 33,000 years.
What?
If you wanted to count to $1 trillion, it would take you 33,000 years.
No way. Really?
Yeah. Huh. So imagine a quadrillion. So 1 billion, 1,000 billion is 1 trillion. 1,000 trillion is a quadrillion. Jeez. We're in the quadrillions now, David.
it's just
money
comical.
That's no longer backed by gold. Money that's no longer backed by oil. Money that's nothing but paper. Saudis have left. If this conversation doesn't make people freak out and want to hold some precious metals, I don't know what it would take, but the dollar is backed. A Federal Reserve note is backed by nothing. God's going to rip away the evil one's money. They're going to lose their precious metals. God's going to give it to the church, fulfilling what was written in Ecclesiastes 2:26. You're going to see collapse of the financial markets of bonds, because remember, a jubilee is a collapse of the bonds. Next year, the bonds collapse. Real estate's going to collapse like you haven't ever seen before. Jeez. It's going to be horrific.
Yeah, Juana said you're going to be able to buy it pennies on the dollar, correct?
What? Ounces on the dollar. Ounces. You're going to be taking your ounces and literally giving it to people, and they're going to be giving you titles to their properties because they're going to want precious metals because you won't be able to buy them. You see, the problem with precious metals is in a bull market, everybody wants them and hardly anyone's selling them. And so those that have it, who prepared, will be able to buy.
What do you see gold and silver going up to?
I told you silver, right? I see silver going to $2,000 an ounce plus, 100-fold. It might take a couple years.
Just
it might take
10,000.
Gold maybe initially $10,000, right? But that'll be maybe in the 30-fold blessings relative to silver, and then you're probably going to go to $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 an ounce when gold, when silver goes. And
then are we gonna be able to transfer that to the gold-backed dollar at some point? Is that how that's going to work?
See, and again,
are we going to be like on a bartering system for a while? Are we just going to be using gold and silver? How does that work?
I think for a period of time, people are going to be using the Federal Reserve note. That could be the trash dollar. So within the United States, people will still be using the money because they're used to transacting with it. But globally, no one's going to be accepting it. And then we're going to have 45 is going to be back in potentially. We'll talk about that, but he comes back in very soon here because he's going to rebuild the financial system. And he's going to back it by gold. So he's going to be not the Federal Reserve note. It's going to be probably the Treasury backed by gold. And so the
Gotcha.
Fed becomes, so the Federal Reserve note, the Fed, the Fed, they become unimportant. No matter what they say, no matter what, no one's going to care because there's going to be the new money system. The new money system is going to be backed by gold, and those who repaired are going to be blessed beyond measure. And so you'll be using, and so the new money system will be directly tied in with gold, and you'll be able to go to the store. You'll give the clerk a piece of silver. If silver is $600 an ounce at the time, you bought $300 worth of groceries. She'll give you change. He or she'll give you change, $300 in the treasury notes.
Wow.
Okay, so there's going to the way you transact in starting 2024 onwards will be not like no other. It'll be completely changed. Everything in the world is going to be flipped upside down. It's never ever going to be the same. Everything is going to change in the financial system. That's how it's all playing out. We're leading into Pentecost. This is a very important time point. Again, then that leads us into November. Okay, it's kind of finishing up here. That leads us into November. So Pentecost, the latter rain was birthed. The first Pentecost was at Sinai. The second Pentecost was the time of the apostles. The third Pentecost has happened already. The latter rain is birthed. The latter rain is on this earth right now. It was birthed on the 20th of May, 2020. Now, if you run, this is cool because if you run the cycle from Pentecost, May 30th, 2020, remember the Daniel cycle, 1,260 days? November, 11/11.
Wow.
Huh.
11/11, huh?
The same day that they signed the peace treaty, that Israel signs the peace treaty, 50 years to the exact day.
Holy cow.
From the War of 73. I'm just showing you, like, you're right. Holy cow, right? How does this math happen? I'm just doing the math, but it's crazy awesome. So be strong, all the people of the land, declares the Lord, for I am with you. This is what the covenant, because remember, God's going to restore the covenant that the founding fathers made with the United States. And my spirit remains among you. Do not fear. This is what the Lord Almighty says. In a little while, I will once again shake the heavens. We talked about this, and the earth and the sea and the dry land. I will shake all nations. I will fill the house with glory. The silver, remember when God fills the house with glory, the silver and the gold is mine. This is in Haggai, okay? The glory of the present house, this one here will be greater than the one of former, of the apostles. And in this place, I will give you peace, declares the Lord. Peace treaty. Saudis.
Oh my gosh.
Is Israel.
This is bananas.
This is bananas. God's going to bring peace upon the earth. The peace treaty with agreement with Saudis will be signed this year. Next year, the time point of peace begins. And utter destruction, because when the glory is on the earth, evil is destroyed.
Wow.
This is the mortal wound that evil gets. God's going to attack and destroy their Federal Reserve. Note how they built Babylon. So finishing up here, the Trump cycle, the 45 cycle, from when he got elected, 1,260 days, we watched oil go to negative $38 a barrel, began on the 20th of May, the Eden Dam breaks, 10 days lookout. We run another 1,260 cycle, takes us to November 2nd. Again, we're back in November again. So something big's coming in the month of November. Don't be surprised if we see a return here before the end of the year.
Wow.
That's my guess. It could be maybe early part of next year. He hasn't revealed this to anybody. This is a secret. God's revealed this is a secret, but the calculations are pointing it's as year ends or early next. You've got also what's written in the scripture of Zechariah. It says, my cities will again overflow with prosperity. Zechariah 1. What's prosperity? The wealth transfer. God's destroyed the financial system as you know it. What's this November? Thanksgiving.
Final harvest, huh?
Final harvest begins. Okay, so this is the first harvest. So God's gonna what does Galatians say? For what a man soweth. Okay, so if you plant evil, look what happened to Feinstein. She planted evil seeds. Look what happened to her, right? So if you plant evil seeds,
he made it to 90 though.
It's okay. And again, 90 is completion, right? That's it. And so she made it to 90, but again, it was prophecy. So the prophecy was that she would be visited by the angel of death, and it happened. So again, I'm just saying, and you can say, oh yeah, she's 90, but the Trump thing and the day of judgment and the Glock, if that isn't a foreshadowing of things that are coming, I don't know what else could be, but that was historic, because no way that was planned by anybody. And so for what a man soweth, thus shall he reap. That's Thanksgiving. So first harvest, it's going to be historic this Thanksgiving. So the first thing happens, US dollar crash. That then leads to another, there's a cycle here, potentially in December, a stock market crash, a massive one in December. But again, I don't really care for the stock market, but basically it's a fall of Mystery Babylon. Mystery Babylon is the collapse of the system as you know it, the fall of the system as you know it. And who is this all guided by? Nimrod. Nimrod, remember the Tower of Babel? Nimrod was the guy that built the tower. This was the first rise of the one world system. God destroyed it. Nimrod fled to Iraq, changed his name to Gilgamesh, and that's why you got the Masons got a G on their deal right here.
Wow. Really?
So they're doing nothing but rebuilding what Nimrod started. What's Nimrod building? Babylon. God's going to knock it down. He's going to destroy it in a single day. It's going to fall. He's going to do so what happened at Tower of Babel is right here. The fall of Mystery Babylon. No different. God's going to intervene and smack them down. They're going to come back, because why? God gave them a season. It's not right now. See, so this is the mortal wound. So they get the mortal wound. So this right here is the fall of Mystery Babylon, the mortal wound. And then if you read Revelation 13:11-12, and then I saw another beast rise out of the earth. It had two horns like the lamb, and it spoke like the dragon. It's exercised, here it is, all the authority of the first beast, Mystery Babylon. It exercised all the authority of this beast, Mystery Babylon.
Wow.
The harlot, and then it makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. So because the mortal wound is healed. So then you have the beast system returns in the future. But by that time, God's made a way for his bride. We've got all the wealth. We've got all the gold, all the silver. Prices are crazy high. You can buy anything you want. You'll have all the land that you need to build God's kingdom, preparing the way for the return of Christ. God restores the covenant this fall into early next year that was destroyed when we turned from our wicked ways in the 1260-day cycle with what happened in 2020, and then specifically when 46 came into office. Okay, so all of this is fixed as this year ends and 2024 begins. Why? Because, again, back to timing. The work has to be complete in the 6th year from Revelation 12 sign. And so the next year is right here. It's the 7th year, and it's the King of Glory year. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And the ones who clean hands and pure heart, who does not trust in idols or swear by false prophets will receive. Here it is, blessings and vindication from God the Savior, the King of Glory. So next year is a Shemitah year, and that's how it all plays out. So that's basically what I wanted to cover. There's very few slides.
No, this is awesome, but I gotta
God
get going.
bless you, Nino. I know you got to run as well too, and I got to go.
Gotta get to the doctor. You're awesome, Bo. This has been amazing. My audience, I know, loves this. So, how about Red October biblical events to come?
Absolutely, that's all.
You
great.
like that?
God, yeah, I think absolutely that's great. God's about to do something historic, and I can't see this going past November 11th. So November 6th through the 11th.
You mean October 6th through the 11th?
I'm sorry. October 6th through
See,
November
I've been paying
11th.
attention.
Thank you. Critically important window of time. And so we just got to watch what God's about to do, but God's not going to be mocked. We win. This is going to be a historic end to the year. Next year is what I just wrote. It's a time of prosperity. It's a time of blessings. It's a time of God's going to bring healing to the world. It's a time of peace. And horrible for those who went against God.
Thank you so much, Bo. Folks, Bo, where do they go? 2024 Gold 2024 cast.
Yeah, gold2024cast.com and my YouTube for Bo Polny. But basically, please download this PDF presentation. Listen to this interview a second time. We covered so much. This is going to be historic end to the year. It's going to be scary and exciting all at the same time.
But if they're listening to you, then they've been preparing and we'll be ready for this. So, Bo, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. God bless you, Nino.